Welcome back, Vinyl Community. Got another update for you guys. Some recent finds and spins. On deck right now, thrift find from just yesterday. I've shown this guy a couple of times before. Keep finding his records, Chief. She is a French-Canadian artist out of Quebec, Canada. Robert Chabois. It's from 1967, still in shrink. On the Gamma label. This is a song called 50 Million des Hommes, 50 million people at Expo 67. Got the lyric sheet in English and French here. He goes a bit of a social commentary on this album. On this one he goes, while we are dancing the cha-cha-cha, Hanoi is bombarded 20 times. The soldiers come from USA. Their guns are made in Canada. So kind of a... He started out as a fairly traditional chanson folk singer earlier in the 1960s. Went to California, got his mind kind of blown by the counterculture going on there, and brought those influences back to Quebec, which was then undergoing a cultural renaissance called the Quiet Revolution, throwing off some of the drabness of previous decades, the domination of the Catholic Church, and embracing the new freedom of the 60s, as reflected in the sleeve. Robert Chabois. And that is actually a promo copy. It's got a sticker on the label there, the Gamma label. Don't know if you can see that. Not for sale. And also came with this little ticket tucked in the sleeve. Sample. This is Racine. So nice to pick that one up. At the same time at the thrift, there was this one that I didn't recognize, but it looked interesting. Actually worth a few bucks. Silent Passage by Bob Carpenter. He was a Canadian singer-songwriter, right in that early 70s kind of folky singer-songwriter sound. He's got quite a rough-hewn edge to his voice, kind of raspy. What kind of caught my eye on here was some of the session players, Russ Kunkel on drums, and Lowell George on guitar. Lowell George from Little Feat on several tracks. Even got Anne Murray on backup vocals. Emmylou Harris as well. This was his only LP, was scheduled for release on Reprise, I believe it was supposed to come out, or maybe Warner Brothers. Anyway, it was recorded the early 70s, was supposed to come out around 1975, never got a proper release. That original, I guess some copies were pressed. There's some on Discogs, they're worth quite a bit. This is a 1984 reissue on Stony Plain Records out of Edmonton, Canada. And even this is worth a few bucks. So excellent condition. Nice singer, early 70s folky singer-songwriter. Also there at the same time, Miriam Makeba, Sangoma. It's a later one by her, 1988, Warner Brothers. Haven't given that one a listen to, but got lots of Miriam Makeba in my collection. Nice to add another one. And rounding out that thrift find, I just showed these guys a couple of videos ago. Society of Seven, found another copy. Very nice condition. Very excellent Sweet Soul out of Hawaii, arranged, produced, and written by Teddy Randazzo. Worked with Little Anthony and the Imperials, co-writer of Hurt So Bad and Going Out of My Head and all those classic songs. Moving up a bit, some cheap bin record store finds. This is one Vinyl Richie was talking about quite a while ago. I'd never really heard of them before. Sweetwater. It's from 1968, I believe, their debut album. They were scheduled to be the first act to perform at Woodstock, got stuck in traffic at Richie Havens, actually performed first, and they appeared later. That's on the Reprise label. Got this for just a couple of bucks. Very nice shape. Coverware. They were an LA band, quite a large band as you can see by the members there. Kind of mixed ethnicity. You've got some Hispanic guys, so there's that kind of Latin rhythm underpinnings on several tracks. Also some kind of classical influence, I would say. They've got, what do we at here? Flute, guitar, you got cellos and stuff on there. And then the lead singer is in that kind of Grace Slick, kind of icy, detached, yet very intense, kind of psychedelic style that was so influential in the 60s. Very good album, actually. I really enjoyed this one. Sweetwater. They had quite a tragic history. She was in the end of 1969, she was seriously injured in a car crash. In later years, a couple of other members have passed away, but excellent album from them. Another one I found, Jack Bruce, bass player in Cream. This is his album Songs for a Tailor on Polydor. We have a year on this one. No. 1960s anyway, I'm sure. Maybe 1970-ish. Bass player in Cream, definitely has that kind of Cream sound. I think the same lyric writer appears on here. So definitely that kind of epic, poetic sort of rock. Imagistic, I would say. And found this one, Harvey Mason, Earth Mover. Another cheap bin find. Cover's kind of coming apart, but otherwise in good shape. Arista label, 1976. Jazz Funk Extravaganza. You got some great players on here. You got the Sea Wind horns. I think Harvey Mason actually discovered Sea Wind Band out of Hawaii. I was just showing them a few videos back, I think. Got the horns section on here. You got Mary Clayton on backing vocals. Louis Johnson from the Johnson Brothers is on here. And lots of other great players. So nice jazz funk album. A few more record store finds. Maria Fumaca, Banda Black Rio. It's a reissue on Mr. Bongo. Had this on CD already, originally released in 1977. Jazz funk instrumentals out of Brazil. Cool stuff from the Mr. Bongo label, great pressing. Found that super cheap in the discount bin, so couldn't pass that up. Another one I found there was Zambian rock from a band called Blackfoot. Mid-70s, I believe already. This is a reissue on the Strawberry Rain label. It's an album called either Millie, or I think it's also appeared as Footsteps. Strawberry Rain reissue from a couple of years ago. Zambian rock, very lo-fi, as these things are, quite influenced by the English rock groups of the 1960s, also kind of R&B influence coming from America, that James Brown kind of influence in there, but cool riffing guitar rock. Another one I found in the discount bins. This one store I go to, they occasionally they clear out some of their new releases that haven't sold and mark them down quite a bit. So if you time it right, you can get some good stuff cheap. And this is one I found. This is Jamaican Gospel. It's a compilation. I am on the battlefield for my Lord. Very minimalistic presentation here. Just comes with a little insert, no liner notes or anything, not even anything on the back cover. Not much I recognize here. A couple of labels, the Tabernacle label, which I think was a Studio One sub label dedicated to gospel, the GG label. Artists I don't really know too much about, but a mix of styles here from more American style gospel, funky kind of stuff, to some country and western influenced tunes even. Just a range of styles and moods. Recent arrival from Soul Jazz Records. They've just put out this great compilation of a UK group called Brown Sugar. Now, Brown Sugar were a lovers rock trio, 3 girl singers here. Carol Wheeler, I believe her name was, Caron Wheeler, who was later in Soul to Soul in the late 80s, had that great hit Back to Life, and others. And another singer was later known as Coffee, continued in the lovers rock vein. These were kind of overseen by Dennis Bovell and others on the UK scene. This is a lovers rock album. Actually, it wasn't released as an album. They never put out a complete LP until Soul Jazz kind of compiled this from various singles, some of which are quite collectible and hard to find. Lovers Rock was a UK phenomenon put together by producers like soundman Lloyd Coxon, producer Dennis Bovell, who were taking the heavy roots sound coming from Jamaica, that heavy bass and drum oriented sound that they were playing on their sound systems at dances, also some of the sweet soul from Philadelphia. They wanted to kind of blend it together, make something that was uniquely UK, that spoke more to the experience and the aspirations of young people that were of a Jamaican background, that were into this kind of music, that coming to the dances. but reflected their own lives a bit closer than what was coming from Jamaica. And often it was performed by artists that were the same age as the target audience. So you had these girls who were all in their teens, artists like Louisa Marks, and heavily female-oriented to appeal to a demographic that wasn't maybe well served in reggae at the time, which tended to be very male-dominated. You had another group, another trio called 15, 16, 17, which was their ages. So great bass and drum driven reggae, but with sweeter vocals. And Brown Sugar were maybe unique in that they blended cultural themes along with the more typical love lyrics. So very excellent comp from Soul Jazz record, double LP, great liner notes. Nice to pick that one up. Last vinyl I'll show. This is a new arrival for me, Jacob Miller, Who Say Jah No Dread. This is a compilation that originally appeared on the Greensleeves label in the 1990s. This is a reissue from last year on the VP label, which now owns Greensleeves, and all tracks were originally recorded in the mid-1970s, produced by Augustus Pablo. Jacob Miller had recorded one tune for Studio One as an 8-year-old, I believe. Had to wait a few more years. He was around 14 or 15 at the time of these sessions. Apparently he was getting into trouble in the streets and things like that. Augustus Pablo took him under his wing as a protege. They recorded these sides together. Some of the version sides of this, and this presents all tunes with their corresponding dub versions. Some of the rhythm tracks on here later appeared on the classic King Tubby Meets Rockers Uptown, dubs by King Tubby. Classic essential roots reggae. Jacob Miller later would leave Augustus Pablo's tutelage, join the Inner Circle band. He was on a quest for greater commercial and crossover success, which he did find. At one point in Jamaica, he rivaled Bob Marley in popularity, but unfortunately he was killed in an auto accident in 1980. But essential sides represented here. Who Say Jah No Dread? Jah Well Dread. A couple CDs just to round things out. Reggae one I picked up recently. It's a recent album from Lee Perry. He's got another new one out here. He's really prolific these days. This is Super Ape Returns to Conquer, Lee Perry and Subatomic Sound System. Subatomic Sound are a kind of a DJ, producer, musician collective out of New York. They've worked with Lee Perry before. Here, this is kind of recorded with the intent to kind of blur the lines between live performance. They toured on these songs and blur the line between live and studio performance. So what they've done here is reworked several of the tracks from the classic Super Ape dub album, or semi-dub. It's kind of hard to classify it as strictly dub. And other classic Lee Perry Black Ark songs from the same period, but with amplified beats to give it a more modern sound. And new performances, updated for the times. Very excellent reworkings there. Also picked up this CD box set recently. I kind of get into UK folk and folk in general around the beginning of summer. Kind of suits that weather for me. Picked this one up, Dust on the Nettles. It's a 3 CD comp of British folk psych, I guess you would say. So you've got a few well-known groups like the Pentangle, Steel Eye Span, the Incredible String Band, and then some very obscure ones. I've been kind of wanting to dig more into the UK folk of the late 60s, early 70s, so that was a nice sampler to go more in that direction. Okay guys, that's what I've got for you today. Definitely got a few more things to share in future, so stay tuned, and thanks to everybody for watching. Cheers, take care.